Hey there, this is Russell Gray, co-host of the Real Estate Guys radio show, here for another edition of Boots on the Ground. Today we're going to be talking about rental properties, residential rental properties in Central Florida. Central Florida has been one of the hottest real estate markets in terms of attracting new people, all kinds of investment. The question is, do the numbers still work? Is there inventory available? What's happening? And so to check in and find out what's happening, we're going to visit our Boots on the Ground team in the Central Florida market. Jean Gillen. Jean, welcome to Boots on the Ground.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, well, we're excited to talk with you. I guess, I think anybody who's paying attention to real estate in any market understands that we had a big spike up in interest rates. It seems like that's moderated a little bit. Everybody's kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Which direction is the Fed going to pivot? But the economy seems to have softened nationally, which are the numbers that the Fed looks at. And so their interest rate hiking seems to have slowed a little bit. Last meeting, it was only 25 basis points. But what's going on there? Because, in terms of the individual market, interest rates, affordability, what's happening in the Central Florida marketplace? And maybe talk a little bit about the specific, cities or metros that you're involved in there that make up Central Florida.
Yeah, and I can start out with saying that the reason that Florida is really experiencing a huge influx of people, huge, number one in the nation. Okay, they're just coming from everywhere, and there's a reason they're coming. We have it costs about $44,000 the cost of living for a year here, and it's really a high end cost of living. So when you come here and you can go to the beach and you can be outside, it's really nice. And a lot of people just realize that I don't have to be in another state. I can come and sit in my house and work, and nobody knows where I am. And the rents are lower than national average, and the houses themselves are really nicer. I mean, I have people coming from California, and they'll buy a house for $300,000, and they'd say this would be $2 million in California. So there's a reason for that, and that's why our rents still work. Rents have gone up, housing prices have gone up, but I think that's all over. But when they go up and they still cash flow, that's the ticket. What's happened? What I'm doing personally for my investors is I'm working with about 7 different builders in strategic locations like Palm Bay, which is Space Coast. And then we're going into Lakeland, which is right between Orlando and Tampa. Ocala, which is the 20th fastest growing city in the United States. And by the way, Palm Bay, number 1 for U-Haul. Then we are in Northport. And in Northport, I don't know if you look at that map, Northport was kind of forgotten because I-75 went around it. And now people are living and moving there. And it's between Bradenton, you can be anywhere there. And it's a higher end. And that's why United Van Lines says that's the number 1 place their van lines are going. But those people can afford somebody else to move them. And the rents are much higher. And then we are also in Sebring, which is a quiet place. And you've all heard about Sebring because it's a race car place. But it's the only place I could find that we could do 2 duplexes and normal people live in them. So, for example, at the exit, normally when you buy a duplex, it has to go to another investor. But there, not so much. Because people from the Midwest, instead of buying a house as a second home, they'll buy a duplex and come and stay and rent the other side. So there's a multiple way to get out of it. So, and of course, our state has no state income tax. And that's a big plus because if you're coming from some of the higher tax states, I won't mention them, we all know them, you're coming here because all of a sudden you can make another 10, 11, 12%. And nobody knows where you're sitting. They don't know that you're sitting in Palm Bay or in Ocala or in any of these places because just don't know. That's the way it's working now.
Yeah. So
And
whether
people
you're
are very happy. Mhm.
So whether you're a tenant or whether you're a homeowner, there's a lot of reasons to want to move to Florida. Cost of living is great. The no state income tax is great. The quality of life is great.
Great.
Central Florida is very different than South Florida. So I kind of look at Florida. You got the Panhandle and that area up there, and all along up the north side, going along underneath Georgia to Jacksonville. Then you got just down underneath that, which is where you're operating, and then you go down Fort Lauderdale and down into Miami. And so when we think of Central Florida, obviously the big major metro is Orlando. And you think Orlando, you think Disney. But you mentioned Space Coast. Talk a little bit about some of the economic drivers of Central Florida and maybe even in some of these submarkets that you're operating in.
Yeah. Well, first of all, there is a reason why Disney picked Orlando, and there is a reason why NASA is here for Space Coast. Both of them have a reason. Disney took it, first of all, you could get a lot of land, but it's a temperate climate. Our average temperature is 75. Not much happens. It's a very nice, even place. And of course, Space Coast is because it's the only place you can put a man into space in the United States. So what's happened is what the people are moving here. We have 4 international airports: Orlando, Sanford, Daytona, and Melbourne. And they're all just full of people and doing all kinds of different additions. Also, we now have this fast train that's going from Orlando to Daytona straight down to Miami. So there's a lot of stuff like that happening. There's a couple of things that you have to understand about Space Coast. We have Space Force, which is now has its own designation in this area, and they have brought in about 400 new companies just for the space. But that also brings in other things: new hotels, new police departments, or everything's new. And the schools are excellent, by the way, in Florida, especially our secondary education. And it's inexpensive. I mean, when you can still buy a 4-year college education for your child, it's called college prepaid, for $20,000. I mean, that's what it costs. And you don't have to pay right away, you can pay monthly. So living here, people are starting to figure it out. It's just an easy place to be. And we talked about Orlando. No, Mickey Mouse is not in Orlando. Mickey Mouse is in Ponciana and Kissimmee. So what happens in Orlando? Orlando got big. It has a lot of banks downtown, a lot of things like that. But people don't live in downtown probably anywhere anymore. I mean, they're all in the suburbs, right? So it's a very the group of people that are now migrating here and renting from us are very strategic. For example, if you were going to Palm Bay, we have Siemens, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, SpaceX, Blue Origin, all of those companies. And for the last 23 years that I've been selling to investors, my hardest sell was always to engineers. Well, my easiest sell now is to engineers in Space Coast, because they can go in and see what's happening. There's more PhDs in that area than any other part of Florida. And it also is, the average wage is well over $100,000.
Yeah, I think
So
when you look back at 2008 and the recovery, there were a couple of states that led the recovery after the recession: Texas and Florida. Texas is always at the top. I mean, Texas and Florida are always both at the top of the list for being business friendly. And so we've been talking about Florida, as you know, Jean, for 10 years because we felt like it had all the mix to have a really dynamic real estate market. And in fact, that's actually been the case. So the challenge then, if the rents are working, the supply and demand dynamic is good, meaning the migration is in, talk about U-Haul, and when you're saying that, I know, just to clarify for the listeners, that just means that more people are bringing U-Haul trucks in and dropping them off than are sending them out and dropping them off. And it's one of the
Exactly.
many indication, along with driver's license and, voter registrations, ways you can tell whether a metro is growing in population, which means a need for housing, or whether it's hemorrhaging population. And of course, in real estate, it's local. So some markets are winners and some markets are losers. Florida's been a net winner for years and years and years and years. And in some cases, that has meant that the people who were already there are getting priced out. And that pushes people out of the major metros into some of the submarkets. And you've mentioned some of those. But the other thing really comes down to, if you get us all hot and bothered about the market, okay, we've got good weather, we've got great quality of life, great cost of living, no sales tax, business friendly environment, all kinds of businesses moving in, people moving in. Great. I want to invest. And then I go and there's no inventory. What's the inventory situation like in the market you're working in? If someone wants to actually get an investment property, are they on a 5-year waiting list, a 2-year waiting list? How does that work?
No. And by the way, all of our houses are being built on infill lots. So there are maybe 0.22 of an acre or maybe 0.26. You can't tell the difference from the eye, okay? So they're not in a subdivision. There's no HOA. Yes, you have to say you want one, commit to getting it. And so, for example, in Northport, it's about 5 months wait. And they rent before you close. And the builder guarantees the rent of $2,800. Think of that.
Okay, so now we're talking brand new properties, build to rent properties in established neighborhoods where you find, an empty lot or a collection of lots, and you're filling in. You don't have to worry about the absorption. You're not pioneering new territory where nobody's ever lived before, but you're getting a brand new property. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Right. And all of ours are brand new. And one of the really good things about having a brand new property is, and I think this is throughout the United States, that insurance rates have gone up. The insurance on these houses are $55 a month to about $90 a month. Whereas if this was a 10-year-old house, it would be $250 a month. So because they are built to 2023 codes, really the code started in 2019, the insurance is way down. So that it boosts your cash flow right there. And also the prices that we get from these builders are below what they would sell them to, on the street. Now you say, why wouldn't they just sell them on the street? Well, to sell them on the street, first of all, they have to have a sales force. They have to have houses that people can go and look at. They have to have somebody write up the contracts. They have to have a lot of stuff. And that stuff easily costs them 10, 15%. So it's easier for them to give us the 10, 15%. I do everything for them, right? And we get a house that has appreciation. We just got one house that was closing this week. It rented before last week, so that the buyer was very happy, and it appraised for $40,000 over what they were paying. That made them really happy. So the average house in Florida is about $380,000. So our houses start at say $239, and they're worth about maybe $290. And the highest one we have is $380, and they're worth about $440.
And how's the cash flow on these things with today's interest rates? I know, if equity's great and we love equity. Equity happens. That's the title of our book. But at the end of the day, you can't spend equity unless you cash out or sell. So what's the cash flow at today's interest rate? Someone comes in and of course they can, maybe you could make the argument you could go a little thinner because you got a brand new home, right? You don't have deferred maintenance. You maybe have a builder homes warranty of some sort, and you should probably talk a little bit about that. But just, what can someone expect? Maybe they put 20, 25% down, or, what do the loan programs look like, and what does the cash flows look like?
If you put 25% down, you're going to get a better interest rate. Now, we do have some people that are going for ARMs. And I don't personally tell people to do that, because most of the people that we work with, they want to buy a house and forget about it. They don't want to think about it, right? So they want to get something and just go on. They do cash flow somewhere between, I think the lowest one's probably about $180 a month, and the highest one's like $400 a month. But the builders are adding a little incentive by paying for the property management for the first year, and that helps a little bit too. A lot of people will say to me, "Well, I'm going to put 25% down because I get a better rate," which I agree with. Okay. And some people will say, "Oh, don't do that. You can buy more if you put 20% down." But if you're not happy with it and you can't leave it alone, and you just need to just forget about it. With a new house, by the way, you can forget about it at least for 4 or 5 years, right? Because the house is new. You shouldn't have anything that's going to go wrong. In the state of Florida, you have a structural warranty for 10 years. The average person stays in a house, get this one, for 40 months. And that's even a used house. On the newer houses, they stay in longer because there's no reason to leave. It was their dirt to begin with. They feel like it's their house. I had one couple that said that they had saw a new house a while back, and they had a renter in there for 11 years. They forgot it wasn't their house. So in Florida, it's in an interesting situation. People are coming from all over. They come to, say, for Ocala. Ocala is in the middle of the state. It's about an hour and 10 minutes north of Orlando. But Ocala has the largest retirement community in the world, probably. It's for sure in the United States. They have over 300 people, and they're building, get this one, 43,000 more houses. It's a lot of more houses. And so when people want a job, you want to work in a hospital, you want to work in a hotel, you want to cut lawns, you want to fix golf carts, because they get to play free golf. You know this, so you're smiling, on over 30 golf courses till they die. I mean, it's really an interesting place. And then Ocala also has the most beautiful and equestrian center in the world. It's also the horse capital of the United States.
I have been there. It
know.
is, I've been there actually a few times, quite spectacular. So let's talk a little bit about the demographic. If I'm an out of area investor, I care about a few things. One is I want to get a great market, and I want to get a great property. Number two, I want to have great property management. I don't want to have to deal with the tenant. I don't want to have to worry about that. The other thing is I want to know a little bit about the quality of the tenant. I want to know, are these people, do they have jobs? Do they have income? Do they have good credit? Are they going to tear my place up, or are they going to care about it? So who are, in this mix, in these neighborhoods, who are the typical tenants? Are they retirees? Are they young couples just starting out? Families? Are they young professionals? What does that look like?
Depends on where it is, because Northport, the rents are like $2,800. So they're big, beautiful, very modern houses. Now remember, that area is really where millennials go. They go to Tampa, that whole area. That's where they want to be. So these houses are, when you look at them, they are gorgeous. They're very, very modern. And they rent before they're even done. And the person that's going to go in there usually is a young, even though they're 4 bedrooms, it's a young professional. Okay, that's who goes there, because their $2,800 or $2,700 is nothing for them to pay for rent. So they are, they go to Sarasota, they go to Bradenton, they go to South Tampa, they go to Clearwater. You all know these areas. They're absolutely beautiful. And so that's who's renting there. Now you go to Ocala, you get more of the people that they're the real hard workers. Okay. So they might, we have 3 or 4 areas in Ocala. So we have Ocklawaha, and that's very close to the villages. So if they want to, work in a hospital or assisted living or somewhere, I mean, you got something like 300,000 people. All the things that people need. They need to get their hair done. They need to wash their
The
cars.
Villages being a gigantic retirement community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and or they, if they're in Ocala, they might work at the equestrian center, and it's huge and it's big and it's gorgeous. The other thing Ocala is famous for now is logistics. They're building a 50 million square foot facility there. Now that's pretty darn big. Okay. They want to be known as the logistics area for Southeast United States. So that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, the
Now you
last time I
go,
was
oh,
out there, I saw some of those buildings going in, and the footprints are massive, just
it's beautiful.
massive. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
And Ocala is huge, by the way. Ocala is huge. So, and it's about an hour from Tampa, and it's about an hour and 20 minutes from the East Coast and the West Coast. So it's a really huge area. And you'll see guys wearing cowboy boots and cowboy hats, right? And then you'll see very sophisticated people with their joffers on, for riding. So there's everything there. It's was the number 20th in the U.S. But now you go to Palm Bay, which was number nine in the U.S. Of people moving there, and those are all kinds of people because it's just a great place to live. If they were living in Melbourne, which is just the next little town up, it would cost them at least $100,000 more for each house, and the rents, and you mentioned this before about people being priced out, the rents went up 26% in Palm Bay. So the rents in Palm Bay are good. They match the price of the home, which is 265, and the rents are somewhere around 2,100 to 2,400. Really depends, of course. You have to remember when you rent it. That means a lot. And you know, last year the houses were renting in 8 to 15 days. 8 to 15 days. So I always tell people, can't you just wait a month? Maybe you'll get, a little bit more rent, but everybody's very excited about doing it.
Well, I will say one thing, and the reason we like to do these and understand who these tenants are and where they're coming from and what their perspectives are, because you can go into a market, especially if you know people in a market, and they go, oh my gosh, the rents have gone up so much, it's not affordable anymore. Well, that's their perspective because they know what it was, and now they see what it is. But when you're moving in from Illinois or New York or New Jersey or Boston and you're coming to Florida, and you're saying, well, gee, now I don't have to pay income tax. My cost of living is way lower. All of a sudden, you're looking at the rents and you're going, these rents are cheap. I can pay a couple $100 a month more. No problem. It's the same thing, I live in Arizona, and, I see this happen all the time. People who are here local are thinking, oh my gosh, these houses are so expensive. This can't possibly continue. And yet the people who are coming in from California, who are driving a lot of the price action, are thinking these houses cost like 70% of what a similar house in California would cost. It's super cheap. It's a no-brainer to pay for it, even in spite of the interest rate. So you always have to check yourself and understand what your paradigms are when you're looking. And then you got to do your homework. That's why we talk to folks like you, our boots on the ground team. When Robert and I talk about taking any investors into a marketplace for the very first time, and we've led field trips for 15, 20 years now, we always talk about the first thing you want to do is understand the market. What does the market do? What is its personality? In other words, is it a cash flow market? Is it an equity growth market? Is there a supply demand imbalance? Who's the demographic that you're going to be serving? And the market can be geographic. In this case, we're talking about that. It can be a product niche. In this case, we're talking single family or residential 1 to 4. And then it's demographic. Who is the tenant? And then once you've kind of got that figured out and you're like, okay, this is going to give me likely to give me a result I want. The most important thing after that is the team. Who's going to help me navigate the ins and outs, the nuances of the market? One area is the war zone, the next area is a gym. You don't know that. I always like to go to the property manager and say, hey, where should I buy a property that you would love to manage? And everybody wants to manage the new, beautiful, pretty property with the professional tenants, not professional like they're a professional tenant, but they're a young professional couple. They have good income or whatever it is. They're going to pay their rent. They have good credit, for whatever reason, they're not home buyers yet, and they're renting until they are. And as long as there's an influx of people, a waiting list, and of course, when you have absorption, properties renting up fast, leasing up fast, and pushing the rents, you get a very, very vibrant market. And after that, it's a matter of just putting a financing structure that makes sense. And of course, in today's environment, we have a time when interest rates are maybe higher than what some people who've only been investing recently are comfortable with. But you have to look back at the scope of interest rates over, the last 20 years, and these interest rates are actually not bad. And the thing is, if you buy the property at the right price and it cash flows and you lock in interest rates that make sense today, if the interest rates go up, You're going to be glad you locked in today's interest rate. If interest rates go down, you're probably going to get a pop in price and you're going to be able to refinance and you're going to be glad that you got the property when you got it. You could almost make the argument that if interest rates don't change, that's the worst case scenario, right? But even if that's the case, if you can live with it today and you've locked in your cost of capital, and to your point, the difference between using an adjustable loan or a fixed rate loan, well, then as the natural progression of inflation pushes rents up, and it's not just inflation, but it's migration. This is the thing. You can have real wages falling, and they are in the US. And so you think the tenant is getting weaker, and they are, which is why they're moving from more expensive areas to more affordable areas. And so those more expensive areas are actually losing faster. Well, some of the more affordable areas, and I'd put Central Florida nationally on that list, get upward pressure from the demand. And when you're running around doing infill lots, you're not cranking out thousands of units. You're doing, maybe dozens of units. So if someone says, "Hey, I'm really interested in this," first of all, you updated your market report. And so we'll tell folks how to get that in just a minute, because the first thing you want to do is understand the market and meet the team. And this is a way, when you order the report, you get both. But talk a little bit about the inventory situation. Are people having to wait if people come in, and then how do they come in? Do they visit with you? Do you show them around? Is it done online? How does that whole process work?
Well, as you know, 99% of the people never come here. 99% of the people I don't know. I mean, their voices on the phone that I become friends with, but I've never, seen them. Most people don't come. And I will say this. If
Not
the
that we're
cash flow
recommending
sheet,
that, right? People are welcome to come.
yes, they're welcome to
Yeah.
come. People come. When you come, I promise you, I haven't had anybody come and not buy. Let me put it that way, okay? And because they just go, really? This, you can have this, and yes, you can have this. I think that when you come, we'll take you around. A lot of people like to go by themselves. We give you the lockbox code. You walk in, you see it, you talk about it with your wife or your husband or your partner or whatever. And that's how we do it. There's no rush. I tell people all the time, you don't have to make a decision today, okay? You just have to think about it. When you feel good about it, you do it. And then you make your decision, you do it, and you get the best property manager you can get, so you don't have to worry anymore. And that is the trick, having the right property manager.
Yeah, let's
having
close out on that, Jean. So I know you're a broker, and so you're
Right.
offering these properties for sale. But what about the property management component? Do you help arrange that? What's that look like?
Yes. So I have two property managers, actually. I have one, which is my son. Everybody knows him. It's the Realty Medics. They are the number one. They are number one in Orlando. They have about 1,700 properties. They are not a mom and pop. They have 64 employees. So, a mom and pop could have 500 and there's 3 people working in, okay? This is not like that. Everything is online. You can call up and talk to somebody at any moment. So that's what they do. It's 8%, 75% of the first month's rent. And with them, their average stay is over 40 months. So they're doing something right. I would say they probably never have a problem with tenants, because if they have a problem, they try to work it out and get them out. Okay. You don't want to have to evict somebody and spend that money to just get them out. And in Florida, if you are evicted, you will never get to rent again. That's number one.
Yeah, Florida's
So
very
that's what they do.
landlord-friendly state. One of the things is business friendly, and part of that business friendliness is landlord friendly. So it's a great place to own rental property.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then we have one other property manager, and that is the builder. He has about 300 properties. Of that, about 140 he owns himself. So this is really important. And it's in Northport. It was too far for the Realty Medics. When a builder owns 40, 50 houses, just like you're buying in the same vicinity, they're going to keep up the rents. They will keep them up. They're going to make sure that you have the best people in there. And so a lot of times when I have new buyers, I kind of siphon them over there, because they're going to have a great experience and their rents are going to be high, and he's going to take care of everything because he built the house. Now he's going to take care of the house and he's going to take care of the renter for you. So either one is great. And by the way, this builder started with me 6 years ago, and he came in. He didn't own one house, not one, not anything. And he said, I've been hearing about you and hearing about. I want to work with you. Now big builder in Memphis. He was right, and he turned 30 this year, and he owns over 140 houses.
Wow, good for him.
He got it. He got it. So you can do it too. I had a couple ask me, well, how long am I going to keep this? I said, how old are you? Is this for your retirement? Okay, leave it alone. Get a 30-year mortgage and forget about it. Just forget about it. And because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if housing, what's going to happen, but we do know that Florida there's a lot of people coming to Florida. And I was looking at the numbers, like 600,000 left.
Well, and you've got the
Illinois.
demographics. You got the baby boomer demographic. Some of the
Right.
southwestern states are experiencing that, and of course, South Beach and Miami is not everybody's cup of tea. In fact, for the most part, it's nobody's cup of tea.
No.
So, but Central Florida, very, very popular place for people to live. Everything you'd want in terms of infrastructure, transportation, shopping, entertainment, commerce, amenities, great weather, low income tax, no income tax. It's a fantastic place. So, Jean, tell us just a little bit. We're at the end of our time. Tell us a little bit about the report you wrote, and then I'll tell folks how they can get it.
Well, I have the report there, and you can see it on your website, correct? And it just goes through what's happening now and why. And it's not just what I'm telling you, because what I'm telling you is what I'm living, and I am boots on the ground. But when you hear it from like Zillow, or you hear it from all these other, the U.S. Census Department, you hear it from other people, then you really believe it. And when you come here, then you really believe
Yeah,
it.
seeing
Because
is
when you
believing.
come here and you're sitting in a parking lot at the beach and you look at the license plates, oh my goodness, it's really takes you back. Like, whoa, lots of California plates, lots of Midwestern plates. And those aren't the people that are, we always had snowbirds, but these are people that are moving here. They come, they stay, and they're very happy.
It's been very
Florida,
popular. So
yeah.
let me tell folks how to get the report, because we're at the end of time. You send an email to Central Florida at realestateguysradio.com. That's Central Florida at realestateguysradio.com. You get a copy of Jean's report for free, and you get all her contact information. If you're interested in more, you can get on her mailing list. She can send you out updates on the market and tell you when properties are available. I'm sure she would love to host you if you want to come out and visit with her and take a trip, a tour around. I've been out there many times myself. It's a very, very beautiful part of the country. If I didn't have so much family over here, I think Central Florida would be on my short list of places I'd like to end up someday. In fact, I'm going to be going there in May. I'm going to be speaking at George Gammon's Rebel Capitalist Live, and got some family I'm going to be visiting while I'm out there. So I've been out there many times. I'm a big fan. So, Jean, thank you so much for your time today and sharing your expertise and your enthusiasm for the market. Your enthusiasm is infectious. And I know people are very happy. Everybody we've ever sent out your way has sent back, said they love working with you. So appreciate that. On behalf of all the listeners, you always want to make sure you have a good experience. So any closing thoughts, Jean, before we say goodbye to the
Well, I
folks?
just want to thank you. And I have to say that you guys are just amazing. You know that I love you dearly. And I can honestly say most of the people that I work with become my friends. And some of you I won't ever see face to face, but it's really nice when I see your call and I call you back and we have a little chat. It's very nice, very rewarding for me, or I would not be doing this anymore.
Yeah, well, we've been working together for years, and we get lots of positive feedback every time, we send reports out there, and people engage with folks in our provider network, which you're a part of and have been for a long time, supporting the Real Estate Guys radio show. We always get good feedback on Jean Gillen. So we're very, very happy about that. Appreciate your time today. Again, folks, if you're interested in Jean and her report, Central Florida at realestateguysradio.com, and you will get that report right away. Jean, you have a beautiful day, and I'm looking forward to seeing you face to face sometime soon.
Me too. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.